Delving into the depths of past centuries often reveals astonishing images of ancient rituals and magnificent farewells, where death was perceived not as an end, but as the beginning of a new, grand journey. In the mysterious and somber confines of a Norwegian burial chamber, where the air was imbued with age-old silence and rare beams from flickering torches occasionally pierced the profound darkness, an exceptional wooden ship, remarkable for its beauty and symbolism, was discovered and carefully laid to rest. It lay there, solitary yet imbued with inexpressible majesty, as if awaiting its final, most crucial voyage. Every plank, every curve of its hull, held echoes of ancient shipbuilders' craft and the anticipation of great accomplishments. Arranged around this majestic vessel, in meticulous order, were not merely objects but genuinely dazzling works of art, shimmering gold ornaments, and countless artifacts, testifying to the immense wealth and high status of the individual destined for this final journey. At the heart of this splendor, aboard this magnificent longship, itself a masterpiece of shipbuilding, rested a coffin containing a noble person. For them, this was not merely a burial but a final, sacred boarding of their faithful companion, meticulously prepared for the great transition. According to ancient beliefs, this very ship, embodying their earthly travels and triumphs, was destined to smoothly carry their soul to the glorious Viking afterlife, to realms where valiant warriors awaited feasts and eternal glory. What do these ancient relics conceal? What secrets are buried with this chieftain? And what can they reveal about the mystical beliefs and grand rituals of bygone eras? Answers to these questions are now beginning to unfold, inviting us to delve into the depths of history and mythology. Fortunately, the deceased was not alone on this final journey. 15 loyal horses and 2 faithful domestic dogs joined them in this otherworldly passage, along with military trophies, tribal regalia, and even gifts from former adversaries. As the animal wax of the torches burned down to their last drops, the majestic chamber plunged into utter darkness, consigning the splendor of the Oseberg burial to a decay unseen by human eyes. In fact, within the damp Oseberg mound in Norway, the remains of not one, but 2 noble women were concealed, one around 50 years old, and her companion over 80. Their eternal rest was arranged aboard the vessel that would later become virtually an archetype of medieval Scandinavian culture, the renowned Longship. What makes the Longship story so captivating is not merely its naval technology itself, but the exceptional way Vikings masterfully employed it to establish their dominance over the waterways of medieval Europe. Their route stretched from the harsh North Sea to the gentle Mediterranean, even reaching the distant lands of Siberia and scorching North Africa. The seeds that initiated the evolution of the Viking longship were sown far earlier than one might imagine, hundreds, even thousands of years before the first Norse raiders set foot on the sandy shores of Francia and the British Isles. History recounts that ancient Scandinavians developed the earliest ancestors of the famous longship. Burial scenes carbon dated to the 4th millennium BCE depict primitive vessels gliding across waves, bearing rudimentary silhouettes and ancient shields. Boats resembling longships are known to have been used by Stone Age peoples, such as the Inuit and Yupik, who crafted slender, low-sided vessels skillfully sewn from animal hides. Evidence of their use has been convincingly confirmed in Siberia, Greenland, and key Scandinavian regions. Undoubtedly, while the Viking longship embodied northern shipbuilding and exploratory ingenuity, it was not the first of its kind. Before its appearance in European waters, a class of Danish boats dominated the design of Jortspring vessels. After one such example from that era was discovered in the Jortspring bog, it was utilized for navigating the North Sea. This particular vessel was designed to transport small raiding parties along river routes deep inland, where land travel would have been exceedingly difficult. Experts estimate the ship was built around 350 BCE. Longships gained their undeniable prominence in the 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries, when Vikings triumphantly emerged onto the stage of medieval Europe, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of history. Centuries later, in medieval chronicles and Icelandic sagas, longships held a prominent place as a fundamental element in any account of Scandinavian raids. As Vikings departed from the traditional settled lifestyle of their ancestors and neighbors, venturing on more distant expeditions than the placid river routes of their home regions, raids on European shores became increasingly frequent. It was the first of these audacious incursions that drew the keen attention of those in positions of prominence within the early medieval hierarchy. Vikings skillfully leveraged their shipbuilding superiority to reach targets faster than any land-based army, swiftly attacking vulnerable coastal positions. Lindisfarne, often cited as the starting point of the Viking Age, was one such defenseless target, falling victim to the fury of Viking sailors in their longships, who plundered the church, seizing vast quantities of precious relics, carrying away heaps of gold, and taking countless monastic lives. Without the longships' exceptional mobility and versatility, it would have been improbable for these Norsemen to undertake such a perilous journey across the North Sea to the Kingdom of Northumbria. Monasteries were typically isolated from main settlements and situated in coastal regions, easily accessible from beaches. With their specially constructed longships, Vikings could advance further onto sandbanks than a typical merchant vessel, disembarking with ease and just as unhindered returning to their ships after their often deadly business. The word impressive can barely do justice to the splendor of the Viking longship. Citizens and coastal guards of Christian Europe likely shuddered at the terrifying sight of these formidable sails appearing on the horizon. Similar raids, analogous to the attack on Lindisfarne, were recorded across northern England and Ireland, with the continuous refinement of Scandinavian naval raiding strategies culminating in the tumultuous siege of Paris in 845 CE. In the Seine River Delta, within the Kingdom of West Francia, an imposing fleet of longships, led by a figure commonly identified as Ragnar Lodbrok, confronted Charles the Bald's army. Demonstrating their full might to the Frankish king, the Scandinavian invaders proceeded down the Seine in their longships, plundering and devastating all of Francia and Paris, which they also thoroughly sacked. Such an attack was not an unusual strategy. Indeed, it was the quintessence of Viking raiding culture. By the 11th century, the evolution of the iconic longship reached its zenith. Longships were built using clinker construction, by overlapping molded wooden planks and meticulously sealing gaps with animal wool, wooden pegs, and other available materials. Thanks to their innovative design, these vessels possessed astonishing strength and lightness. Sitting low in the water, Viking longships could achieve speeds of up to 15 knots and execute sharp turns with ease. This compensated for their lack of ramming power and volume compared to the capabilities of other medieval ships. However, longships were not designed for naval battles, but for maximum mobility and practicality. They allowed attacks on virtually any location with a beach or navigable waterway. Viking raiders could penetrate many miles inland in just a few hours and strike their enemies from within, making the longship a fundamental component of any Viking raiding strategy. Such attacks were recorded along numerous waterways, particularly the Rhine, Seine, and Thames. Frustratingly, there was no real way a medieval European army could effectively defend against the invasion of Scandinavian longships. Always in sight yet just out of reach, these cunning longships were key to the Norsemen's plundering of Europe in the early Middle Ages. While much of the Viking longship's success stemmed from its ingenious design, long voyages across foreign oceans would have been impossible without the thick tar coatings used to insulate and protect the boats. In recent years, archaeologists have unearthed a striking number of tar pits, dating from the 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries. These were likely used to burn pine and other ingredients to produce a primitive form of tar, which rendered the Norse longship so formidable in all weather conditions. For a Viking leader, their longship was not merely a vessel but a vital and valuable possession. The Icelandic historian Snorri Sturluson recounted tales of revered Viking longships bearing majestic names such as Long Serpent, Dragon Ship, and Bison. The impressions we gain of longships from Old Norse sagas and medieval chronicles offer a striking insight into Viking culture. Ships were not considered mere conveyances, they were sacred vessels that carried young Viking men towards their destinies, which they believed lay just beyond the horizon, in lands they were rightfully meant to plunder throughout the early Middle Ages. It is easy to mistakenly perceive Vikings as solely malicious, selfish marauders, but this is not the complete picture of their history. Beyond raiding, they actively engaged in trade with other European peoples, transporting many tons of foreign goods across the North Sea. The Norsemen saturated European markets, introducing continental cities to exotic goods for the first time in the Middle Ages. In the 10th and 11th centuries, it was a common sight to see rows of longships moored on the shores of Europe's most prominent Baltic port cities. However, the Norsemen were no strangers to more distant waters. By the beginning of the first millennium, small contingents of Vikings arrived in certain northern areas of America, which they named Vinland. Leif Erikson led one such group. Thanks to our understanding of ocean currents and longship sailing characteristics, along with some valuable remnants of North American Viking homes, scholars have been able to trace the routes they followed. If Icelandic chronicles are to be believed, voyages to Vinland continued for at least another century after Leif Erikson's group. These journeys shaped and revolutionized the longship's design, transforming it into a formidable, ingenious technological marvel capable of handling the harshest waves and effortlessly traversing hundreds of miles. The Vikings owed their success not solely to weaponry, armor, strategy, or military prowess, but primarily to their ability to repeatedly attack any target they desired, time and again, undermining the morale of its defenders and swiftly disappearing over the horizon when the situation turned against them. Without the Longship, these Scandinavian travelers, traders, and raiders would not have come close to leaving the colossal legacy they have in history today. From the icy northern shores of Siberia to the scorching sands of North Africa and the sunny, windswept plains of Anatolia, Longships carried Vikings across the medieval world, reshaping its very fabric.